Hi, I'm Mark Juarez, and our next episode, I told you in the previous episode about how we got into Nordstrom's and we became the best selling massage tool or the best selling product in Nordstrom's cosmetic counter in 1992, December. In January 1993, we became, now we're in four Nordstrom's in January, and we became the best selling item that Nordstrom's had ever seen in their store by January 1993. Tracy Ellis, the manager of Body Shop in San Francisco next to Nordstrom's, had discovered this, as well as many other department stores were calling us and saying, how do we get this? Um, but Tracy was really cool. And she asked if she could come to our factory and pick them up directly. She wanted to see them. What I didn't tell you is from my mother's garage, one of the executives helping put the massager together had been in real estate. And he said, let me find you a warehouse. And I said, oh my gosh, that would be perfect. And he found a warehouse just down the street from my mother's house. It was the original Safeway distribution center, which they started in Oakland. And they'd broken it up to small artist um, community. And we rented our first small warehouse and started putting it together. Soon we put up tables, we started hiring people, and with the help of these 10 executives that I brought, they helped me set up a company pretty fast, like really fast. and um, they helped me hire people, and it was insane. I started work at a very young age. My first business I started at 12. And I had this idea that I wanted to give young people an opportunity to make these. So we did a special program at school where we brought young people in, but I wanted to do it a special way. I wanted to teach them about entrepreneurship. So we created a very unique program for them. And I was just in awe at how well it worked. They were like sponges, and they got so excited in making these. And the 10 executives that I brought were just unbelievable. Their resourcefulness, their wisdom, their it was fun. And my whole premise was, let's make work fun. Let's music, pizza and beer. Every day should be a party at work. That was our premise, and that's what we did. It started in my mother's living room, and we never stopped that. Because to me, work should be fun. Um, but Tracy came to our factory, and she's like, "This is the coolest place ever! Oh my gosh!" And she fell in love with it, and she not only bought for she managed four body shops in the Bay Area. We started at the body shop, and soon, weeks later, she came back to us and she said, I want to come work here. You guys have the coolest factory ever. And I said, that would be amazing. And I said, what would you like to do? And she said, can I do sales? I said, perfect. Oh my gosh, that would be great. I said, let's start with the body shops. And so there were 110 franchise stores. Um, Non-franchise stores couldn't buy this because it was a non-body shop item, which they categorize as sundry items. But but the franchises could. So we sent a letter to all the franchises. We made an irresistible deal. We would, on the first order, free shipping, free returns if for any reason it didn't sell, and we gave them a good margin, a little bit better than they would have gotten on body shop products. And we wanted to make it just so easy for them to buy. And they, to our absolute astonishment, all 110 bought. But the amazing thing was, this was early or mid January. And now we just shipped them to all the body shops. In February, now we're sitting in our office. We have a tiny office. It was originally a meat locker for a Safeway. And and there's eight of us squeezed in this little, because we didn't have any money. So we're eight of us squeezed in um this little office. And we got a call. And somebody said, "Hey, you're on the John and Lisa show." And I'm like, "What do you mean? Who's John and Lisa?" And they said, "Oh, John and Lisa is a talk show." And they were interviewing a woman who just wrote a book, How to Bring Romance Back into your your love life, into your relationship, in honor of Valentine's Day, which is going to be in a few days. And I said, "Oh, that's cool. But what does that do with us?" And they said, "Well, she was talking about massage as one of the ways of doing that." And John said, "My wife, she massages me for 2 minutes and it starts to feel good. And then she says her hands are tired." And the woman who wrote this book said, "Oh, I've got the solution for that. I happened to buy this in the mall, and it's a great little massage tool, and it kind of saves your hands. Let me show you, John." So she starts to massage John. She takes it out of her purse and she starts to massage him. She started to massage John with her hands, showing how to massage. And when she brought this out of her purse and started to massage him with the massager, he's like, "Oh my God, what is that? It feels really, really good." And um, but she wanted to talk about her book. So she puts it back in her purse and she said, "Oh, it's a little wooden massager. I bought it at the mall." And he said, "Where?" And he said, "I don't know. I think the body shop." And um, and so John and or Lisa and the woman are talking, and John's sitting next there, dumbfounded. He's looking, he's like, that was so good. And then he's looking at her purse and he's trying to sneak out of her purse this little massager. And Lisa slaps his hands, "Stop it, behave." And John's like, "But that feels so good." And it was funny. It was only about 45 seconds of airtime. But with that 45 seconds, suddenly we're like, "Oh my gosh, that sounds cool. I wonder what's going to happen." Suddenly, our fax machine, we had an old fax machine that we pulled out of the dumpster. I couldn't afford to buy a new one, but our fax machine was pretty clunky and it started spitting out faxes. And we're like, "Oh no, it's a problem here." It kept spitting out all the same fax, a body shop order. But my assistant ran over and she said, "Mark, wait, these are all different. They're all different body shops. And wait a moment, these are big orders. It's no more 24 or 40. It's like 400, 600, 800 massagers." And we all looked at it. And, and another, um, um, our accountant grabbed them all and she started adding them up. She said, "Oh my gosh, this is huge order." She looked at me and she said, "What are we going to do?" And we all looked at each other and I said, "Wait, we, we got to get to work. Let's scale." And what do we do first? And I said, I've got to call Earl, my guy in Maine who makes the wood. We'll have to place another order." So I call him up and I said, "Hey, we're getting big orders on this. Could we get two, just two more container loads? I mean, a big order." And he said, "When do you need it by?" And I said, "Well, as soon as possible, like tomorrow." And he said, "No, no, there's no way you could do this." But he said, "Look at, I just laid off a lot of people because now it's our slow time. I could put them all back to work." And I said, "Oh my gosh, that would be amazing." And he said, "Look, I'll help you out here. I'll get him back to work. We'll we'll run 3 shifts. I'll get you your product, and no one's going to complain. These guys are so hungry for work. I'm so happy I could put him back to work. We'll get it for you. And I said, oh my God, you're the best. Okay. And I said, how fast can we get it out here? He says, look, I love this guy around in Maine. They said, Mark, in we live in Maine. In case you don't know, we're all maniacs. We work harder than anybody else in the United States. We will get this done. And I've got a trucking company, husband and wife. These guys are unbelievable. We'll get the truck loaded in 3 days, and they will not stop driving until they get to San Francisco. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're the best. And and they were a husband and wife team. He drove 8 hours, she drove 8 hours. He drove 8 hours, she drove 8 hours. And they did exactly as they said. They were from Maine to San Francisco in less than 3 days. They're unbelievable. And we were in full production. Then I ran out to my production crew. And by this time, we were so squeezed against four walls. I t- talked to my friend who got us this warehouse, and I said, okay, we got to get another warehouse. We're not going to have enough room here. And I realized we couldn't pull that off in a week. What can we do? And it was kind of cold in our warehouse, and we didn't know how to heat it so we could keep our employees warm. So I thought about it for a little while, and I went out and I said, you guys, we've got great news. We got this big order, but I don't feel good about you guys working in this warehouse. It's cold, it's drafty, and we don't have enough room. I've got an idea, and I want to run it past you guys. And they were like, what's that? And I said, would you guys like to make it at home? And they're like, we don't follow. What do you mean? And I'm like, well, if you guys have garages or things, I started making this in my mother's garage only a few weeks ago. And then we just got this warehouse. What if would you guys like to work at home? And they said, but it's so much fun working here. And I said, well, what if you guys worked in teams? Like 5 or 6 of you went to somebody's home and started making these. And they said, well, that could work. And one woman said, well, can I come to work in my pajamas? And I'm like, of course. And um, suddenly they started to talk about how they could work at home. And I'm like, we could do this. And I'm like, great. Do you have any friends? And they're, because we're going to have to hire some more people. And they said, well, can my grandmother help? And I'm like, absolutely. And soon they started asking their friends. And before we knew it, we doubled our the number of people we had. And we went out and bought 2 vans, and we had to go out. Oh, it was amazing. But within 1 week, we were able to more than triple our production by moving it away from our warehouse and into the people's homes. We had to get really creative really fast. But we were soon making enough massagers. It was unbelievable how many were selling through the body shop. In fact, the body shop said we became the best selling item in their store by a factor of 7. We were selling 7 times more than their next best selling item. And they said no other item had ever achieved that many sales. We couldn't believe it. And what Tracy and I had done is showed them how they can massage people. And when they massage people, they could sell more other products. But they had so much fun massaging. And that's the end of this episode. Thank you so, so much.